Boxing Casuals.
Welcome back to the Boxing Casuals, the one-stop shop for all things boxing. We've got a heavy lineup of information to get out today. I'm Chris. I'm joined by Sam.
Hello, Chris. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, cheers, mate. So, it's been a couple of weeks now, and we've missed out on quite a bit of information. We've had a chance to record with all things happening around in life, but we had the big one, didn't we? A couple of weeks ago, Canelo versus GGG. Did you manage to catch it?
Absolutely, we did, and just on that lack of content, I hope you guys are appreciating the fact that we've been doing these little mini episodes. I'm doing a plug. I'm starting this off with a plug, guys. If you haven't, then listen to them because that is the way we're going. That Canelo Triple G fight, I stayed up for it, Chris. I told you I wouldn't stay up for it, and I did stay up for it. And
I didn't know. It was quite compelling, wasn't it?
Yeah. How do I feel about that? I don't know. Like, I actually came away from that feeling quite sad. It's a weird reaction to come away from a boxing match, but I felt sad for Triple G. His body is just caught up with him. I think he was still there mentally, but he's just... he didn't go down. You were right. You didn't get your prediction completely right, though. You said split decision. It was unanimous, but yeah, on points, he didn't go down to the head.
Wait, no, it was split.
It was unanimous. Decision. Unanimous.
No, was it? Yeah, was it unanimous? Yeah, yeah, it was close though. Yeah, close in the cards. That was it, wasn't it? Yeah, 2 115s and 115 113s and 116 112.
We actually did have a correct call in the comments, so shout out to Matt Wakeford. Well done, you got that one right. Let's talk the fight then, Chris. I don't know. Canelo got a lot of backlash.
Well, look, he's adopted the style of just throwing big punches and fighting in bursts, which it can be good if you knock your opponent out, but if you don't, you just you slow down. And at the end of the last few rounds, you really saw Canelo slow, and Golovkin was starting to put the pressure on him. He was throwing a lot more, but in the early rounds, for sure, it looked like Golovkin knew his body couldn't keep up with Canelo being the younger, faster guy, and he was backing off. He was using his good defense. He didn't get hit a lot, throughout the whole fight. He did get hit, obviously, but not to the amount you'd think. He's definitely getting old. But he showed slick movement still, good defense. He just didn't let it go. He just didn't let his hands go enough, did he? In the first few rounds, the first opening six,
No.
I've struggled to give him more than one in those opening exchanges. The first round, maybe I gave him because I think he was more active with the jab. But after that, he just struggled to give him more than one round. But
I think Triple G came on a bit late, and I don't know if that was part of his game plan, but he did seem to get a second wind or whatever you call it, like in the 11th and 12th. I feel like that was too little too late. Yes, Canelo had gassed a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
But not enough for that game plan to work.
No.
It was sort of damage limitation the whole fight. I felt like I was just watching him get beat up. I think Canelo was... Maybe we're going to disagree here. I felt like Canelo was quite in control. He had the range and he had the pick of the shots for a majority of it. That's why he did get a fair bit of backlash from it. People saying, why did you even take the fight? It wasn't a game opponent, that kind of thing. It's one of those. It had to happen. We all wanted... The reason we watched it is the same reason the fight happened. We wanted to see the conclusion of that trilogy, and it's done and dusted. You can talk about if that happened a few years ago, it could be different. But the reality is it's done. They've hugged it out. Beef's over, that kind of thing. I just think it was not nice to see Triple G get beat up like that. He's a proud man with a good record, and it was just not nice for me. I think, personally, he should be looking at calling it a day at that age, personally. How do you feel about that, Chris?
Well, yeah, he's gonna be up against... Canelo is good. He's not the fastest guy, and if he fights down at middleweight, he might have a chance still. Against some of the top guys, Jamal Charlo, he could have a chance against. But if he's going to give up the early rounds like he did against Canelo, and afraid to get outlanded or afraid to get stuck in early, then I'm not too sure how the rest of his career would go. But like I say, I can still see him competing down at middleweight. He's not going to retire, that's for sure. He did say in his post fight interview or his post fight press conference. Sorry.
I personally just think maybe he should be looking at that. Obviously, what's my opinion? Obviously, it's a casual's opinion, but like, I think he's accomplished everything he's ever going to accomplish. At this stage, it's just keeping his name going, keeping a payday coming. But like, he's at that age where you're starting to risk your health if you clock some big shots and that kind of thing. And you've just, I personally don't. I think if he retired now, he would still be respected as a legend in the game. You know, I don't see any benefit to carrying on fighting really.
Yeah, well, you know, he's a Kazakh, and these guys are made of different stuff. If you look at the punch stats on CompuBox, surprisingly, they're actually pretty close. Alvarez with 130 to Golovkin's 120. Obviously, the margins, the swings are on the jabs and the power punches. Golovkin landed 74 jabs, where Canelo landed 45. Canelo landed 85 power punches, where Golovkin landed 46, and that was telling. In the because you saw Golovkin throwing a lot of jabs throughout the whole fight, and near the end he was starting to double and triple them up. He did have success with that towards the end.
That's what I mean. I don't understand why he turned it on late. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah. But hey, okay. So where do you see Canelo going from here? Who do you see him fighting next? There was big talk about him. There's big talk, obviously, always about him fighting David Benavidez, the super middleweight.
Well, I've seen numerous things. I've seen talk of a rematch with Bivol, which I think he should not engage himself in. That's a bad shout for him. And I've also seen that Alexander Usyk said he's going to have 3 fights, one of them being a cruiserweight clash with Canelo Alvarez, and I just think both of those are bad moves. That's money fights. That's not proving anything. He will not beat Bivol. It's just not possible, in my opinion.
I don't know. I mean, down at 160, Bivol did say that he would fight him at 168 for all of Canelo's belts. And if Bivol was to come down to 168 and Canelo's a bit more trim, does he gas out like he did in the first fight? Maybe not. I mean, on that fight, I gave Canelo most of the first opening 4 rounds, and you saw him really start to slow down, and then that's when he started to get dominated. So if he's got the gas tank of 168, perhaps he could put a battering on him, but we're not sure.
I just think styles win fights, and that's exactly how I wanted Bivol to fight that fight. And for me, it was. I mean, bearing in mind, Canelo was considered pound for pound, still is one of the pound for pound best. Like he schooled him, and I think psychologically going into any fight, you've got that edge on him, and you've got the style on him. You're longer than him, and you know how to beat him. So I don't see it happening. What? Let's talk actual fights then. You mentioned someone. What do you think for Canelo?
Well, that's 168. I think that's his WC mandatory. Obviously, he's going to have mandatories with the WBO and the IBF as well, and the WBA. I think the fights that he wants are Bivol. He wants to rematch with Bivol, but obviously Bivol's tied up with Zudra Ramirez, and I think Canelo's cheering on Ramirez. That's a big fight coming up in November. Personally, I think I would like to see him defend his belts back at 168. Yeah, Benavidez could be a guy. I kind of want Jamal Charlo to move up and challenge Canelo. I think that's a fight that Showtime are trying to throw around. Although I think there's still one more fight left in Canelo's deal with the Zone, mind you. I think, personally, who would I want to see him fight? I'd say Jamal Charlo would be the guy. Have you seen much of Jamal Charlo?
No, there's no point me saying that I have, because I haven't. I would love to see Canelo win against another domestic level fighter, because I'll be able to talk to you all night about it, but I don't think we've got anyone at the moment who could give him
if he's got a one fight left of his DAZN deal, I can see Eddie Hearn chucking John Ryder's name in the mix as a sort of a chill out fight. I mean, John Ryder is tough, rugged. Does he beat Canelo? Probably not. But he's one of the guys that've got a 168. Maybe a Danny Jacobs rematch. I think is Danny Jacobs still tied with Matchroom in some way? I can't remember now, but I mean, they haven't really got too many guys for him to face unless he goes up or down.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's a difficult one to call with Canelo, because I feel like some of the things that Triple G was saying in the build up about him being a celebrity has sort of hit home, I think, and these fights that are out of his weight classes and stuff sort of prove that. But look, we'll see. Ultimately, he won the fight. It wasn't the thriller we're all expecting. Well, for me anyway. There was some decent undercards that you wanted to mention quickly before we move on. So I'll let you talk.
The co-main, which was one of my favourite fighters at the moment, Jesse Bam Bam Rodriguez. He was defending his belts against Israel Gonzalez, a tough title challenger. He's fought Chocolatito in the past. He's fought Joe and Ancajas. He fought Khaled Jafai, losing to unanimous decisions to both him, Roman and Khaled. I think he got KO'd by Joe and Ancajas, but that was, 6 years ago now? Oh. No, sorry, 4 years ago. So yeah, he got a rugged decision over Israel. There was a few low blows taken. I know, Sam, you weren't too impressed with him, but to be fair, you didn't catch the first two fights with Carlos Cuadras and Siskritz or Rong Visai. So yeah, if I were you, I'd go back and watch those and have a cheeky look. I think you might be impressed.
No, I will do. And like I said, I kept an eye on it because obviously you'd previously mentioned that you were interested in him. I quite openly watch like domestic sort of fights. That's my game. But kept an eye on him. I think there was a lot of potential there. You told me he's only 21. I didn't know that when I watched him, to be fair. Yeah,
he's got a lot of skills. Very skilled.
He's very skilled. He had a bit of a tough time, but at that age, to be doing that and still get the W, he could go somewhere, definitely. It's one to watch, is Bam Bam. I'm sure we're going to cover him in another video, so we won't go into him too much now.
But the fight before that, we also had USA's Austin Williams fighting Britain's Kieran Conway. That was at super welter. Oh, right, I beg your pardon, that was at middleweight, in fact. Normally, they both fight at super welter. I mean, the thing I've noticed of Kieran in his last couple of fights, he sort of starts off well and then fades, and it sort of doesn't do much. I wasn't too impressed with Conway. I did have high hopes for him in this fight, but yeah, Austin Williams did a pretty good job.
He started off quite well on the jab, keeping the distance well, but I think he just gassed out a little bit, and he wasn't willing to commit. He wasn't willing to get in there and get stuck in. I think if he'd done that, he might have caused a bit of problems. Ammo was reckless and rugged, and it wasn't pretty to watch, in my opinion, anyway. But he got the W.
Times, that's for sure.
He got the W.
And he seems to be getting pretty negative crowd reactions at the moment and social media reactions just for his antics, like pre and post fight and during the fight. I'm not sure if you saw some of his antics. I don't know. He seems to have brought that on in his last couple of fights. When his last few fights before that, he seemed fairly humble in the ring, fairly modest. But hey, one to watch.
It might just be the way he's trying to sell himself, mate. In the modern world, that's how it happens. Should we move on?
Yeah, did you catch the big one on BT at the weekend, mate?
I did. The Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, for anyone who doesn't know. What a fight that turned out to be, eh?
Yeah, it was an instant classic, I think. One I'm probably going to have to rewatch a couple of times just to fully appreciate what we witnessed. What was your reaction to the fight, Sam? Did it go how you expected it?
No, I was completely wrong. We didn't actually do a video beforehand of this because we weren't sure whether the casual fans would know about it. But I predicted that Joseph Parker, being a previous world champion, would have done a little bit more against Joe Joyce, maybe moved his feet a little bit more. But he seemed to be pretty adamant that he was going to stand his ground and beat Joe Joyce up. But I don't think that's possible with the Juggernaut, as he's called. I don't think that is possible.
Yeah, well, the main issue for Joe Parker in that fight was that Joe Joyce has a chin made of iron, reinforced with mithril.
If you thought Triple G had a good chin,
he's also got a gas tank that seems to be able to power a small village over in Kuwait, which is very bizarre. He threw like a record 800, near 900 punches in the 11 rounds, and that's something you often don't see with the heavy guys, especially one heavy guy as him. But yeah, I mean, this kind of fight, the fight went kind of how I expected it to go. I mean, if Joseph Parker was going to win, he was going to have to move a lot, and we saw after the third round that he was able to move out of the way of a lot of shots, but not enough. and it wasn't slick movement. It was like exhausted, walking back and hanging on the ropes and hanging in the corner. And that's precisely where he doesn't want to be with someone like Joe Joyce, who is just going to throw shots until the cows come home.
Yeah, and that's it. I mean, I've always been a fan of Joe Joyce in terms of I like him as a person. I've never, until this fight, I'd never seen him, contending. When I saw him up against who was it he fought last? Was it Takam he fought last, or someone like that?
Joe Joyce's last opponent was I think it was Takam actually.
It was someone, and he knocked him out. But the general consensus from boxing fans.
Oh no, it's Christian Hamer, wasn't it? It was Christian Hamer a few months ago. Yeah.
Sorry, and it was Takam before that as well.
Last year.
Yeah. The general consensus from boxing fans as a result of those fights was, he good. He beat these people that have sort of had not great fights. He won't be in their contention with the big boys. He'll get laughed at. He'll get beaten up. But like, Joseph Parker isn't a mug. He's an ex-world champion. That is a step up for anyone in anyone's book. For me, this fight has shown me that he deserves at least a shot at the world title, which he is the number one contender for the WBA.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely deserves a shot against someone. But will he get it anytime soon? Probably not. I mean, we're going to see Alexander Usyk. He's calling out the likes of Deontay Wilder. Whilst obviously Fury's got engagements to fight at the end of this year. Eventually when the WBO mandatory is called, then Usyk would have to either fight him or give up his belt, assuming that by that time the unification bout, because unifications trump mandatories. As long as the unification isn't in the works, then it's mandatory will be called, and he'll have to give up his belt or fight Joe Joyce. And it's it's Joe Joyce is someone that Usyk's fought before. They fought in a 5-round amateur ABA World Championship competition.
Yeah. Which is available on YouTube.
It's available on YouTube for sure. Usyk won every round of that fight. He dominated Joe Joyce. But the issue for Usyk in the fight, in a professional fight, is that this is going to be 12 rounds. He put a lot into those 5 rounds of amateur fighting, and obviously he put a lot into the 12 rounds he just did against AJ. But AJ doesn't bring that Joyce pressure. Joyce will be on him for 12 rounds. Can he keep up the stamina? Usyk's very good, don't get me wrong, but can he keep up with the pace and the pressure, the bludgeoning shots?
He's truly some sort of enigma, because he's 37 years old. He came into the professional game very late.
Well, very late.
Yeah, he does set a pace. He sets a pace, and he consistently sticks to that pace in every fight. He sticks to a pace, and it's not like he slows down or anything. Whether or not some people say he's really slow and that kind of thing, but I think it's just consistency that does it for him as well. He will walk you down, and it must be quite intimidating to throw your best shots at someone and just see it sort of glaze off his thick skull. I think it's a weird marketing tactic they were saying about his bone density or whatever. I think that's a weird way to go about things.
I heard about that. Yeah, something. His bone density is like 5 times thicker than the average human. But I don't know about all that. But what I do know is, this is one tough, immovable object that's going to give anyone in the heavyweight division a hard night, purely because of the pressure and the amount of shots this guy throws. He might not be the boxing fans' favourite boxer, but he definitely is entertaining. I don't care what anyone says about him being slow. The fact that he's coming forward, throwing shots, and trying to get this guy out of there every fight is entertaining to me.
800 punches for a heavyweight bout says a lot. We were just speaking about Canelo Triple G, and they were in the 200s. That is insane. The amount, even if they're not big shots.
Yeah, the Canelo Triple G fight. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so 400 to 300 more shots than the super middleweights. Just goes to show what engine this guy's got. But in keeping with the fight, that's what we saw. We saw him come forward, land bludgeoning shots, and Joe Parker wear him out, and eventually get the finish with a perfectly timed hook. Joyce and Parker, to his credit, took a lot of shots. He showed a lot of heart in that, and he landed a lot of big shots as well. But Joyce isn't going anywhere, is he?
I think it was like the 5th or the 6th where he caught him with 3 solid quick succession hooks, and I think that's the point where we realised this guy's not going anywhere. Like, all credit to Parker. Not only did he go in there, because he's got a notoriously good chin as well. Let's not downplay the knockout. Like, Parker's got a good chin. He's not someone that gets knocked down easily, and he wouldn't go down. He was looking a bit wobbly in like the second, but to knock out Parker like that is quite an achievement. Parker was in defeat, truly humble, and I've got so much respect for that guy because he's done a lot for the sport. And I was speaking to you before we started recording about he's the sort of fighter that you would continue to watch even though he's got a losing record, but not a losing record, but he's got some losses. Boxing needs to change. The way that people are going to get into this sport is if the best fight the best, and this was an example of two people who were relatively evenly matched on paper clashing, and it was an absolute war. It came out as just brilliant, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I agree. No, a very good fight indeed. So, where do you see Joe Joyce then? We've already talked about how he's likely going to be U6 WBO mandatory. He's the interim belt holder now. And bearing that fight doesn't happen. Wilder's there. Heard some Wilder's name being mentioned amongst some of the reporters. Obviously, Fury. Who knows what's going to happen with Fury at the moment? Where would you like to see him go?
I personally would like to see him fight Wilder. I think that would just be such a solid test of his chin. It wouldn't be the most boxing match in the world. It would be a bit of a slugfest and a war. I think Wilder might cause him problems. I don't think he'll get knocked out. But again, we've never seen him in trouble, so we don't know how Joe deals with these things. We literally have no idea.
Yeah. I was looking around on a few social media. I'm a bit of a sucker for looking at comments on social media posts, and there was a few people out there saying Wilder would knock him out within 4 rounds, and I just can't see that.
He's definitely slow enough to get hit, though. There's no doubt there. He will get hit.
He's slow enough to get hit, but will he get knocked out? I don't know. I mean, he took some flush shots from Daniel Dubois in his fight, and Dubois is a massive puncher. He's no slouch when it comes to the power punching department. We saw him take massive shots against Parker on the weekend just gone. He took some big shots against Christian Hamer, kept coming forward. He's seen him take some big shots and not even not phased. I have seen him wobbled and in that Usyk fight, but that's because Usyk caught him with a flush, clean shot in the right, perfectly timed as he was like coming in. He sort of gave him a hook on the chin, and he did wobble Joyce. But also Joyce was a lot lighter in those days as well. He wasn't as big as he is now.
It's he's someone that the reason that we've included him in this podcast is because he's someone that we definitely think people should start following, because yes, he's older than other fighters, but his conditioning, I don't see him retiring anytime soon. I see him going from strength to strength. He's well up there. He could be challenging within the next year or two. He could be, he should be, in my opinion, challenging for the world titles.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, bearing that you can't get a world title shot next, any of the guys in the top 10 who hasn't fought yet, Wilder, Ruiz, who's just got a win over Luis Ortiz. Luis Ortiz can give it a go. Dillian White, would he return for that fight? I mean, it's a very high risk fight for Dillian White.
One uppercut, he's done.
Well, there's that, and Dillian White's feet aren't the best to watch, and aren't the best for Dillian White because he often trips over them. But Derek Chisora to that fight? Probably not. Again, another high risk fight that he doesn't need.
I don't see that happening, and to be honest, I don't know if anyone wants that one. I mean, that would get some domestic watches for sure, but I think
definitely, 100% get domestic watches.
I think to progress Joyce, he needs to be fighting some bigger names, and I think Chisora after Parker would be a relative step back in terms of skill, not experience. To progress him, you'd want him against a Wilder, maybe a Ruiz. That's it, really. All the big boys, all the other two, really. I don't think AJ is part of the conversation. I don't think that would ever happen.
I don't think it well. I mean, if AJ is in the talks to fight Fury at the minute, and that fight doesn't happen, then he won't fight Joyce. That's for sure. There's the promotional issues, and also, although yes, AJ just got beat. I mean, as a voluntary defence or a voluntary for a world title, anyone will take AJ over Joyce any day of the week just because of the monetary gains that it's likely to incur as opposed to what Joyce would bring in. But hey, okay.
One to watch, guys. One to watch.
For sure, yeah. Did you catch any of the undercard?
No, not. I mean, I'd had a few beverages, Chris. I did watch a couple. I watched Amanda Serrano. It wasn't the best fight in the world. It was a pretty lackluster undercard, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was pretty lackluster. So Amanda Serrano, who we recently saw fight Katie Taylor not so long ago in one of the best women fights of all time, I'd say. She faced up against a former featherweight champion, Sarah Mahfoud, of Denmark or Norway, one of those Nordic countries. And yeah, Sarah Mahfoud, she pretty much went into survival mode from round one. Was constantly on backpedaling, and you're never really going to stop anybody or hurt anybody throwing jabs going backwards. So yeah, she was in survival mode from the first round and pretty much gave up every round just trying to survive. So it didn't make for great watching. We also had Nathan Heaney against Jack Flatley on the undercard. That was the fight I was looking forward to. Just a bit of a step up for Nathan Heaney. He often brings a big following from Stoke, being one of the Stoke football fans. And that fight got stopped in the fifth round due to a clash of heads, and he got the nod on the judges' cards. I think he won 3 rounds to 1 or something along those lines. But yeah, pretty lackluster.
Yeah, for me, that card didn't warrant a pay-per-view. I still paid for it. I don't think 20 quid for that fight, as much as I've been hyping up Joe Joyce and it was a war and it was a brilliant fight. You're potentially going to be paying less for Connor Benn, etc. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I agree. I don't. It had to be pay-per-view because Joe Parker has earned his earnings. Would have driven that pay-per-view to get Joe in the ring. He's been a pay-per-view a couple of times now, and I'm sure he wouldn't want to take a pay cut to fight a risky fight. So yeah, it had to be on pay-per-view. But was it pay-per-view worthy? Probably not. No.
Let's quickly talk about some news before we go on to anything else. I know that there's some. We got the big Connor Benn Eubank fight coming up, that kind of thing. But I just wanted to touch on quickly this little bit of what I find quite comical boxing beef between Jake Paul, who I swore we'd never mention on this bloody podcast, and Eddie Hearn. It's a lawsuit based on a video. I did watch the original video. I didn't really think much of it. I read the comments and everyone was saying, right, that's a lawsuit in that. Long story short, Jake Paul accused Eddie Hearn of, for one, choosing judges, and there was a specific judge. I think it was Glenn Feldman or something, wasn't it? Or someone like that. Anyway, there was a specific judge he named, and he was effectively saying that Eddie Hearn is buying these judges and buying a decision, and that's why one of those cards for Usyk Joshua went. Joshua got the nod. I think it was a stupid, naive thing to come out with. But what do you really expect from a YouTuber? I don't think that they think that there's any repercussion to their actions. Eddie Hearn basically said that he would accept an apology, and Jake Paul apparently has not issued an apology. So now there's a 100 million lawsuit for defamation of character. I mean, what do you think about this, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely silly, isn't it? You don't go around accusing promotions or companies of ill doing, especially when you've got the following that Jake Paul has. He's got quite a massive social media presence on most of the big platforms. So you can see where Eddie Hearn's coming from in terms of the defamation, the defamatory aspect of it. I'm sure you mentioned earlier that it would be down to whether Eddie could prove any loss of earnings from these defamation comments. We don't want to get too technical into this or too much into this, but it'd be an interesting case for sure.
Yeah, how it would tend to work with defamation would be that there would need to be proof that this has caused a significant, issue to Eddie Hearn's business. I don't think it will do. If anything, a bit of controversy might do him some favours, to be honest. But I do think that Jake Paul needs to be put in his place when it comes to boxing. He seems to be treating it as it's the fight game where I can just go and fight whoever, make my money, hype, say whatever I want. You know, this is a sport at the end of the day, and people do love this sport, and people care about this sport, and people put their blood, sweat, and tears, and people, you know, die effectively in this ring, and it's unfair to come out and say it like that. I think it would be ignorant of me not to say that corruption exists in the sport, because it definitely does. We've all seen bad cards. Look at Catterall versus Taylor, that kind of thing. But
Yeah, that's terrible.
to actually name a judge and name a promoter is dicey. That's not a good thing, and I can understand why it's been taken seriously.
No, I see as well.
Let's see. Hopefully, it puts him in his box. And I promise you now, guys, unless he fights Tommy Fury, we will not talk about Jake Paul again. We will talk about him if he fights Tommy Fury, but up until now, that's us done now. Agreed, Chris? Done.
Yeah, that's in the bag. All right, okay. Well, a couple of weeks' time. Was it a couple of weeks? What, Ben Eubank? Was that 3 weeks?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. A couple of weeks' time. Ben Eubank.
It's crept up on us, mate.
Pay-per-view. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I'm really intrigued by this fight. I'm not sure how it's going to go down. What Chris Eubank are we going to get in the ring? That's the question. Are we going to get this lethargic, jabbing and moving Roy Jones light-esque? Or are we going to get the ferocious Eubank we had in the past? So I'm quite curious to see how this one goes. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, he's still playing his mind games, isn't he? Eubanks is still, at every given opportunity, posting videos of him out eating, drinking, doing bits. Like, it is mind games, though. There's no doubt in my mind he's taking this guy 100% seriously, because there is a lot on the line if he loses this fight, psychologically, and whether or not he claims that it's not about the legacy, or I can't remember who said it wasn't about the legacy. One of them did, but it entirely is. You know, this is the reason this has sold so well is because their dads had such a beef back in the day. Like, I can't see personally, based on, you know, the last time we made the predictions, I still think that we're going to Eubanks is just going to shut him down. It's not going to be a knockout. It'll be like a sort of a points sort of, yeah. It'll be similar sort of thing to, it won't be the jab, but it'll just be moving. It might be relatively boring to watch. I think Connor's going to be looking for the KO because he needs to get that. I don't think he'll get the nod from judges because I've never seen him really be that kind of a boxer and go for that kind of stuff. I think he's going to be looking to assert himself and knock him out, and I just don't think Chris will let him do that. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no. Well, he's going to be moving more than Adrian Granados was in the only fight where he's fought someone who's trying to fight to survive as opposed to fight to win. And you saw how frustrated Connor got in that fight, so it's going to be tenfold on a couple of weeks' time. The bookies have Eubank, a massive favourite, and I can say I'm intrigued. I'm keeping an open mind on how that one is going to go.
Well, that's it. And I was saying this to you before we started the recording. Like, I'm making my predictions, but I've been very open with anyone that spoke to me about it. Like, don't get me wrong. If Connor Benn wins, I would love him to win, because in this situation, I'd love to be wrong, because that means we've got a genuine contender who's young enough to go the whole distance, who's taken on someone, you know, with credible opponents. This is someone that we can get behind. You know, I don't want to say it, but he could be the next AJ. He could be that guy, and I'm sure Eddie Hearn will be telling him that behind closed doors. I'm sure that's the conversation that's going around. But you know, Connor Benn could be the real deal if he takes this step up and does it well. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay. Well. Oh, just on those social media posts of Chris Eubank eating, if you ever actually properly looked, he's like taking like the
tiniest bites
of cake.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's all. I mean, I noticed that straight away. It's mind games. I think before we go, it's probably worth mentioning that we got a little bit of information. Me and Chris decided we're not going to talk about the undercards because neither of us know enough about either fighter. But there is some information on the where to buy it, the price, and that kind of thing. As far as I'm aware, it's on DAZN, and if you've already got a subscription, it's £10. If not, you're looking at about £18. I think it's definitely well worth a watch to anyone. Like, it really is.
I mean, £18 it's not the worst pay-per-view in the world. I mean, we were just charge 20. How much was it? 20 for the one just gone?
So £20 on BT Sport for that card. I mean, I've paid more than that for Amir Khan versus Kell Brook. I paid more than that. Yeah, I've definitely paid more, so it's not too bad. Again, with the zone, though, things do change overnight. So if we get any news, we'll keep you up to date. The big story that came from that was that Eubank Sr. was calling the fight off because he's already lost one son. So far, we've heard nothing to the contrary. As far as we're aware, this fight is going ahead 100%.
Yeah.
And we're buzzing for it.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Okay. We've got a big return. So Lomachenko, one of your favourite fighters and mine.
The Matrix.
29th of October. He's been out for, I want to say, well over a year. Last before was 11th of December against Ghana's Richard Comey, my compatriot. But he'll be fighting a up-and-coming Jermaine Ortiz, who we recently saw him fight an aged Jamel Herring. To get a pretty, he won the fight, but it was closer than you would have liked it to be against a 35-year-old Jamel Herring. But yeah, Lomachenko, you looking forward to seeing that one? You going to catch that one at all?
100%. I don't miss a Lama fight, and I tell any casual fan, if you want to get behind a fighter or someone that is one of those sort of fighters that should be remembered, you look at Lama. I believe it was his father that trained him, but same camp as Usyk as well.
Yes, it's the father that trains both of them, yeah.
And there's a documentary actually on YouTube, I believe, or Amazon or something, and give it a watch because their unique style of training these fighters. But you have to understand, Lama had an amateur career in the hundreds and only lost once or twice. The guy.
His amateur boxing career. He's something like 396 wins and one loss, and then
something absolutely ridiculous. Like, can you? I mean, just to put that in perspective, guys, can you imagine 96 fights, one loss, and he avenged that loss before turning professional, and then he had a fast track to becoming a world champion. And at the time when he came out, people just didn't understand how this guy was so good. But if you've already fought close to 400 times before you turn professional, you've seen it all. And that's the same for Usyk, really, isn't it, Chris? Like, he turned professional relatively late, but he'd seen it all in the amateurs.
Yeah, they're both about the same age. Usyk's 35, Loma's 34. They both got massive, amateur careers. Both Olympic champions, gold Olympic champions. I think Loma's a double gold Olympic champion. So these guys are well accomplished fighters. That's why Loma, when he started boxing professionally, started off in a world title fight against... beg pardon. His second fight was a world title fight against the veteran Orlando Salido, who he lost to, but you need to watch the fight, because that was...
It was very controversial, that one.
There should have been some points. Very controversial indeed, yeah. But he went on a massive run then, beating some big names, Gary Russell Jr., Roman Martinez, Nicholas Walters, the Axeman, Jason Sosa, Miguel Mariaga. He made one of my favourites, Rigondeaux, quit on the stool.
I was going to say, on that note, Chris, before you go on, quitting on the stool, there was a run of opponents for about 5 or 6 that quit on the stool against him.
Yeah, that's right. That started from Nicholas Walters.
Yeah, people just realised, you have to watch his fight style, guys. Like, he swarmed people so effectively that, they knew they couldn't win and they just weren't willing to do it. Like, the guy's an enigma, and I'm excited to see him back. He lost his fight, and I would argue when he lost his world championship, he was coming off an injury. He wasn't himself,
Well, he didn't throw much for the first 5 rounds. He didn't throw much for the first 5 or 6 rounds, and that was pretty telling that there was something wrong with his shoulder, or wrong with his something connected to him throwing punches. I don't want to make excuses for him, but
no, it was his shoulder. I mean, I will make excuses for him as someone that's just had shoulder surgery. He's that's it. Look, guys, he's going to get back to it. He's going to be the name. He's going to retire a fucking G. Just keep your eyes on Lomachenko, the Matrix, guys, and look up that documentary. I'm so excited for this fight, Chris.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. I think if he gets the win, because Devin Haney, the unified lightweight champion, the undisputed lightweight champion, he's lightweight as well. They're both now fighting for top rank, so it's a fight we could see down the line, perhaps.
So you think he might he'll become world champ again, and then potentially retire champ?
I think if he fights Haney, it'll be a good fight. Well, it might be a good fight. We'll see how Haney reacts, but he's got the tools to beat Haney. Haney's got youth and the length, so it'll be an interesting fight for sure.
Check him out, guys.
Okay.
Thank you for your time, guys. Look, one thing I will say before we sign out completely, next time out, we're going to focus on a couple of bits. Chris is going to take you through some of the up-and-coming fighters. We got a specific fighter in mind that Chris is going to talk you through. We're going to get you interested about that, and I'm going to focus on the past. I'm going to look at some domestic-level fighters from the past. We're just trying to mix it up and make our content a bit more interesting. But as ever, if there's anything you guys want us to talk about, if there's anything that you guys think that we should mention, give us a shout. We will definitely include it because, you know, ultimately we're doing this for the love of the sport and we love talking about boxing. So yeah, like, comment and subscribe, you filthy casuals.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.
The Boxing Casuals.